All right, Trustee Roberts, thank you for joining me tonight. You're not only running, but you were recently appointed to Village Trustee. So thank you for taking the time to sit down. It's a good opportunity to get to know our current trustee as well as a candidate for office. So thank you for spending some time with me tonight.
You're welcome.
Let's just get started. Maybe tell me a little bit about yourself. Start with maybe where you grew up, family.
Okay. Well, I'm a son of a military career, Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force. I was born in the early 50s. I have 6 brothers and sisters. And around 1955, my dad was transferred to France. So at the time, there were only 5 kids. So off to France we went. And we lived in France for about 2 years until, the French decided they wanted the U.S. military out of France.
Do you remember any of that time living there?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I was born in 52, so I was, only like 5 or so or 6 when the time we were moved there until we moved to Germany.
Do you remember, did your parents tell you, were you speaking French at the...
No,
you didn't pick
nothing
it up
like
at all
that.
then?
No. You're in military housing, so you're really not around the French that much.
Okay.
So in around 1957, we ended up getting transferred to Wiesbaden, Germany, and we lived there for about 3 years. And my youngest brother, John, was born in Wiesbaden, Germany a few months before we came back in 1960. Now, I remember a lot more about Germany, but we have a lot of family videos and stuff back then, so I'm not sure if I actually remember it or I remember because I see the videos and things like that.
Well, that's pretty cool that you had videos. Was it... Your dad would take videos?
Yeah, they used to take the old, reel-to-reel tapes, videos, and my dad was pretty active taking it back in those days. And so we had a lot of home movies and stuff like that. I've recently had it converted to digital.
Oh, that's great.
So I have it all on. I have, tons of it that was converted to one memory stick.
Wow.
And it's amazing. All the totes I had is now on one little stick. But and it's categorized beautifully where you can hit the chapter you want to watch. But I remember a lot about Germany, where we lived. I remember the school I went to. I can visualize all those kind of things. I remember the German fire department behind us every day. They would go out at lunch and they would play soccer and stuff like that, But I don't remember a whole lot of the travels and vacations we took in Germany.
Then how long were you there?
So we were there about 3 years. We're in Europe about 5 years total. So in around 1960, we moved back, and we ended up, my dad got stationed at Scott Air Force Base in Southern Illinois, and we were there until 1968. He retired in the fall of 67 and got a job in Chicago. And so when we got out of school in 68, we all moved up here, and we moved to Hazelcrest. So I finished high school at Hillcrest High School, and I went to South Suburban College for a year, and then I was drafted into the Army, and I spent 2 years in the Army, basic at Fort Polk, AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Field artillery was my specialty training, and from there I was shipped to Germany. And I spent about a year and a half in northern Germany, and we were stationed with the Dutch Air Force. And fantastic life experience being over there. I bought a car, I traveled a lot, and you don't make a lot of money, but it goes a long way when it's $1 is $3.20 on marks, so you kind of felt like you're rich.
Have you ever gone back again to visit since you left?
I haven't, and it's kind of been a dream.
Yeah.
And my wife doesn't have any desire to go, so it's not a trip you want to do on your own.
Sure.
But
wow, what a great experience.
Yeah. So I got, I spent my 2 years, and then I got discharged, so to speak, or whatever. After my 2 years, I came back, and I love woodworking and crafts and things like that. So I was trying to get into the Warsman Trade School was kind of my goal. And things were pretty bad in 74 as far as the schools and the economy, so there was no openings. So in the meantime, I had a friend, he says, "Oh, go to Dominic's." So I went to Dominic's, and they hired me, and hired me full time. So I worked there for 32 years. But
What did you start off doing at Dominic's?
I started off just throwing cans on the shelf. And within a year, I was closing the stores. I was like, they call him a head clerk. So basically when the assistant was off, you took his spot. So in about a year or so, I got a letter from Washburn Trade School that they had some openings for me to apply. By then, I was already starting to make a little bit of income. Not a lot of money, but a lot. Good enough I was getting by. So I said, you know, I kind of like what I'm doing. I'm going to stay here. And so we did that. So I stayed there, and a couple years later, in '76, time moves fast, I met my wife in the fall of '76, and we got married in June of '77. It was a short dating period. So I met her, and I just kind of knew she was the one. You know, I had to convince her of that.
Did she grow up?
More challenging.
Is she in the area too? She
lived in Oak Forest.
Okay. She's
originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we come to the spring of '77, and my wife's parents, he got transferred to Mount Vernon, Ohio. So there come the dilemma. What are we going to do? I couldn't see her moving there when we were talking about getting married and we were engaged. So we moved up our wedding to June 4th. So we knew each other probably about 8 months between meeting her and getting married. And so now today we got married and lived in Tinley for a short period, and then we moved to Country Club Hills for a little while. And we had 2 daughters there. And in 1990, my daughters were getting to the age then where we had to start thinking about education for them. And Country Club Hills schools were already in shambles. So we started looking for places to move in. We ended up moving to Mokena. 3 days before we moved to Mokena, my 3rd daughter, Megan, was born. So she moved in. We moved in July 29th of 1990, and she was born on the 26th.
Wow.
So there was a lot going on back then. And my career had progressed over the years, as you would expect. You know, I became a co-manager and then eventually a store manager. And
were you at some of the local stores here, or where were you at?
Well, the funny thing is once I became a manager, I never, ever worked really in my neighborhood again. Okay. They like to move you. So I became a manager, and the closest store I was ever at was the old store in Frankfort, or in Matson on Route 30.
Sure.
There was an old store there. So I worked there for a little while, and I closed it. And then from there, they shipped me into the city. And from there, I worked at 47th in Kedzie. I worked 31st in Ashland. I worked 71st in Jeffrey. So I worked a lot of diverse stores, and I spent about 10 years on that little circuit before they finally moved me out of the city. Then they moved me to Joliet. I spent about a year there. And from there, I went up to Schaumburg, Willowbrook, Woodridge, and then in Woodridge is when I left in 2007, 2008 timeframe. And at that time, Safeway had bought us. Things were not the same company we'd worked for. So it was time to move on anyway. So
is it typical to move around that much as a manager?
Well, if a company's growing, there's a lot of movement.
Okay.
I mean, they don't just move to move, but typically they have a store opening. So they're opening a new store, remodeling a new store. So they're shifting personnel with that. So it's kind of typical that you're going to move every couple of years, 2 or 3 years. Very unusual to stay in a store 5-6 years, you know. So
what do you think the biggest, what would most people be surprised by of the grocery industry?
Oh my gosh, you know, it's first of all, if you've never worked it, it's a very, very hard industry. Very hard. It's very demanding of your time. The customer demands are incredible. They never stop. They always want more and more and more. Obviously, price of food, even when it's not inflationary, it's always expensive, if you know what I mean. So I think that they would be shocked to see the effort that's put forth to make a store look good every day. you can do $200,000 or $300,000 in a day. I can leave at 6 o'clock at night and the store looks like a tornado went through it. I come in the next day and it looks like you haven't had a customer in a month. I mean, the overnight crews that stock your shelves are phenomenal. They face your store, and you got the the maintenance crew comes in, does your floors, and you come in the next day and you're ready for business again. And the other thing is the low percentage of profits that stores make. I've been in stores that do $1 million a week that barely make any money.
Wow.
A lot of our leases are very, very expensive. Utilities are very expensive in the industry. And obviously your cost of goods, nothing's free. So, and labor's expensive. We deal with healthcare. We're a unionized company. So, you're given healthcare. You're given a pretty good wage. I mean, my wife is making, she worked part-time there. She's making like $18 an hour with benefits. So there's a lot of overhead in grocery stores. And
what, in times like, we've seen over the past couple of years where there's prices are like overnight jumping.
Yeah.
How do the grocery stores keep up with that and not be losing money every time they're selling groceries?
Well, you have a price department that is changing tags almost 24/7.
Wow.
As suppliers raise prices, we get a new tag, and the tag is generated and it goes up the next day. So you're constantly changing tags, not only for that, but also for your sale items are going on and off sale, which is happening also every week. So the price change thing, and I would say, because obviously I'm not in the business now, but I sure know pricing. The pricing since 2020 on an impact in the grocery business, and a lot of it can be blamed on supply maybe, but a lot of it's also blamed on the cost of energy. There's nothing in a grocery store that doesn't require gas. I mean, whether you're heating your building, cooling your building, or whatever, getting your vehicles to market, your products in your store and things like that. You got semis, and they were coming out of Wisconsin and Mariano. So, I mean, I look at the price of eggs. I was in the store the other day. A 30 pack of eggs was $30, and I thought, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the cheapest dozen is like $7, $6-7. But so, they're blaming this, I think, on the bird flu kind of thing more than anything, Yeah. But when I found when prices go up in the industry, they never go down. The first item I ever remember that to be true was probably sugar and then coffee back in the 80s. I think Colombia or somebody had a bad crop, price went up. Well, can of coffee never went down again, So it's so the market's driven by a lot of things, but mostly, most of the increases come from our suppliers.
Well, I don't want to make this all about groceries. I think it's very interesting.
Well, you're going to add it.
No. I think it's interesting because it's something everybody deals with. Yeah. I mean, my wife is at the grocery store right now.
Yeah.
But we don't always understand the workings behind it.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine thinking about how many kids just go through and throw stuff or push things down and then they have to have it clean. It's got to be a tremendous process and one that we overlook and take for granted.
Well, I think in today's what's changed, and it's always been there, but it's nothing like today. And I think that's the retail theft side of things.
Oh, sure.
That's if you go into these stores now and you see the cages and locks on everything. That wasn't the case. I mean, I worked 71st and Jeffrey. We didn't lock anything up back then, okay?
Wow.
47th, we didn't lock anything up back then. Yeah, people came in and stole, but not to the volume they do today. We used to prosecute everybody who caught stealing. It was $2 because you had to put the message in out there in the neighborhood that we don't have a limit. If you steal and you get caught, you're going to pay. And so that's kind of what we did. Today, though, I mean, people come in and they literally steal whole carts of stuff and just walk right out.
Amazing.
And that margin there, I mean, I don't remember what store it was, Walmart or Target. Someone recently, about a year ago it was, announced the retail theft number, and it was just a staggering number of missing inventory.
Wow.
So, but...
So you talked about your family, your wife and your daughters.
My 3 daughters.
So tell us about them.
Okay, well, my oldest is Carrie, and when we moved out here, she was like in 6th grade. So she went through the Mokena School District to finish that, and then went to the split schools back then, 2 years at East, 2 years at Central. She's married to a Lincoln Way graduate also, and they have 2 daughters. The oldest is a sophomore at Lincoln Way Central now, and the youngest is in 7th grade. So
And they live in Mokena?
they live in Ravinia off Town Line Road over here, just west of town. Can't vote for me.
I didn't think about that. Huh?
Yeah, they can't vote for me. But and then my middle daughter, Katie, she was born in 1981, and she also married a Lincoln Way graduate. She has 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl, and her oldest is a sophomore at Lincoln Way West.
Wow.
And she's a good kid. She lives in Elwood, and her husband's in the carpentry business, construction, stuff like that. So, and then there's my youngest, Megan. She was there the other night. She's the redhead, and boy, do you know that. Megan also married a Lincoln Way graduate, Kevin Connolly, and she actually first started going to school with him in about 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
So they had known each other for years, and she put her claws in him pretty early, I think, in life. They pretty much dated all through high school. They went to different colleges, and when it was all said and done, they came home and ended up getting married. And they have 3 kids. Their oldest is in 2nd grade. Then they got a kindergartner, and they got a 2-year-old.
Wow.
So, and they live in Tinley Park. So, all good kids. I'm proud of every one of them, and they got good husbands and really good families. So,
what do the kids think
lucky.
about all this being involved in?
Well, they're used to me doing crazy stuff. So, I don't know if I told you this story, but you have so many chapters kind of in your life, and pretty much I retired in 2019 from Mariano's in June of 2019, and I knew I was going to do something, but I'm fortunate. Peggy and I are huge savers. We don't waste money. We don't spend money. So I didn't really have to go find a paying job to subsidize my income. So I was always looking out for what I could do to keep myself busy. So I joined the health club. I did that, but that's just not enough. My wife was meanwhile volunteering at the hospice house in Joliet, and so the COVID came, and then after COVID and all that, it was kind of over. I was still kind of thinking, like, what are you going to do? I thought about taking a part-time job, mostly just for something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the Veterans Garage came on me. And so I started getting involved with that in March of 24. And I came in right about a month before they started their move. So I helped them do the move and everything, and spent a lot of time down there helping them set up and do stuff like that. And then as time went on, we did a transformation of the board recently. So I ended up on the board, and I also decided that someone needed to keep the books and stuff like that. So I volunteered to be their treasury. So I'm doing that now.
And Veterans Garage, for those who don't know, is started by former Mokena Mayor Joe Werner, and in this area. And then talk a little bit about how they ended up with the facility they have now.
Well, after Joe had passed away, there was a lot of talk about they were going to have to liquidate the Veterans Garage. We didn't really seem to have a real driving force of volunteers to keep it going. So there was a lot of, when I first came on board, that was kind of like, are we going to close? What are we going to do? That was kind of the thoughts. No one really had made a decision. And then we have a guy named Bill Vale. He's part of the family, and he works down in Mantino's veteran home. So he reached out to them, and they offered a space for us.
Wow.
So at that point in time, we all got re-energized. We packed up, and we moved to Mantino. And they gave us a nice facility. It's rent-free, utility-free. And they also have committed to the museum for us, too. So it's absolutely perfect location because we have around 350 vets there. And So the military vehicles with the vets, those two things just go hand in hand. They're just a perfect combination together.
And I've seen their Facebook posts where the veterans can come down and help and work on the vehicles,
Yeah.
and what an awesome
Yeah.
thing to have on site for them there.
Oh yeah, I sometimes when the weather's nice, we'll because a lot of them are wheelchair bound. We'll lift them up, we'll put them in the trucks, and I'll give them a 10-minute ride around the facility and stuff like that. And
That's great.
we take some of them on our events that we go to and things like that. But a lot of them have pretty bad restrictions, unfortunately. But we do what we can to keep them engaged, and they literally love the event.
That's awesome.
So we're there.
So tell us a little bit about what do you do for fun besides Veterans Garage, or?
Well, what do I do for fun? Well, I mean, I recreational golf. I'm not a great golfer, but I hang with my daughters and their family a lot, and my wife's family. They live around here, and we typically for years we'd been going to since I'd retired. We started going to Alabama Gulf Shores in the wintertime. So that's kind of it. I cut my own grass. I got an in-ground pool that keeps me busy. So just doing yard work around the house in the summertime and managing the pool and stuff like that. It's kind of what I've done, and then it came to about the middle of the year or so. I started calling Frank, reaching out to Frank about the internet services and stuff like that. You heard me tell this before. I started thinking about why do we not look at internet as a utility and have the villages negotiate rates like they do for water and other issues, water, sewage, garbage pickup, and all that. So Frank and I had a couple talks back and forth about that. One day out of the clear blue, he calls me and goes, "Hey, I got an opening on the board. Are you interested in filling it?" So that was kind of a gut check moment, I wasn't sure what I should do there, and I said, "Why don't we let's get together and talk?" So Frank and I got together. We talked for about 2 hours, and I decided that it's something I wanted to do, and my wife was supportive. My daughters think I'm crazy, so then from there he put me in touch, and John, the administrator, we got together and we talked for another hour and a half and 2 hours, and from there Frank appointed me. The board approved it, and I was put on the board on September 11th. And it's like a really a golden opportunity. I didn't have to run, and I get the benefits of actually being behind the scenes of how a village is run. And I have a lot of my own ideas about the village. And I think that one reason that I did partner with Frank and agree is because I felt Frank is open to a lot of my thoughts and directions I think we should be going. And I feel like if we can get elected, that we're going to be able to set an initiative out there in some direction that maybe some things been talked about for a long, long time. Maybe we can actually make some progress towards them.
So the internet issue that you brought up, is there anything that you've done with that since being appointed?
Not yet, but Frank and I talked about it, and if God willing, if we're elected, that's something that we've talked about. If I'm elected, we will set up a kind of a commission. You'll let me spearhead it, and we'll get involved with all the internet providers that provide to the village and the ones that don't, and see if this is a doable idea. I mean, legally speaking, I don't know whether you got a leg to stand on. I don't know about stuff like that, but I think that I think if we partner, and my idea is we partner with villages around us. You need leverage, and if we can partner with villages around us, maybe between Frankfort, New Lenox, and Mokena here, maybe we can find some way to find a carrier that will lock in rates that are affordable for everyone.
Okay. You talked about that you'd previously run back in the 90s, right? Shortly after you moved in?
In fall of 96, the election was in 97. Okay. And I, back then I was already starting to formulate a lot of things about the village. What was going on downtown. The traffic was already starting to get, pretty bad. And I was also concerned about the homes subdivisions we're building about. There's no lots. they're just putting house on top of a house. So my three things I was interested in is making sure that we didn't put a house on less than a half to 3/4 of an acre, and do a comprehensive study on traffic to see what we can do with our traffic patterns before it's so bad that we can't do anything. And so those were two of my things. And then the Front Street area was dying a slow death. And I felt that we needed to do something on Front Street to attract some type of business down there. So those were kind of my big things I was looking at back then. And
how do you feel, I mean, looking at the issues that were important, what's that, 30 years ago?
Yeah.
How do you think those issues are now?
Well, the traffic is definitely much, much worse. By the time you do a traffic pattern study, you get people to buy in on it. You could get the state to agree to any change that be made, get the funding for it. These are like 10, 15-year projects. So I look at the traffic now and I say, where will we be in 10 or 15 years? Because I see where we are today. And I think that the best efforts probably, I don't know that the best efforts are going to be able to ease the traffic on us for many years. And I think we've passed the window of trying to get ahead of that. Now we just have to figure out if we're going to do anything about it. If we're going to, it's one thing if traffic flows through your city and they stop at your businesses, but they don't, they just flow through and go home. And so we're not really gaining anything by the pass-through traffic that we're getting today. The homes, as far as homes and lots, a lot of the subdivisions they've built since then have been, I think, pretty decent. I mean, we got that Whispering, it was called Whispering Springs or Hills out west here at Whispering Creek. They did a nice job with lot size out there. I think those are pretty nice. So a lot of the stuff, I mean, Old Castle Woods, there wasn't a house up when I moved in. So they developed that, and I think they did a heck of a job up in there. So a lot of what I was thinking about with the lot size, I'm not saying they listened to me because I know they didn't, but someone had the good sense to realize that we didn't want to just build a house at the top of a house. We wanted some yards there.
So what did that, going through that election and losing, what did that teach you?
It taught me I was on the wrong side.
Were you running with a slate at that time?
I was running with a slate. I had already made a decision to run, and then there was a guy named Ed Lark. He had decided he was going to run for mayor. And then we had another one, a gal, Lori Hermanson, and she was running. So on the backside, we all kind of partnered together and ran as a slate. But the people we ran against were the same kind of group as you have today called Friends of Mokena, but they called them back then like Citizens United, or they had a different name back then. But they were really heavily supported by the businesses downtown, the Tuttle family at the time. And the Tuttle family, which I was naive to not understand that, they didn't want really any change downtown because they owned the only businesses down here. So anyway, I ended up losing. We all three lost that year, and I guess what I really learned is the way you have to network if you're going to do this. You can't do it alone, and so part of why I'm running now is because I feel we have a network ability that maybe we can reach out and do something with.
What did you do? Did you get involved anywhere after that election?
Not really. Well, they thought I was crazy. I was already working 10 and 12-hour days.
I was wondering about that too.
And I'm driving. Well, at the time I was driving to Joliet, one of the closer rides in my life to work. But so another opportunity really didn't come up. I think I don't know if you're kind of blackballed once you do something like that and run against an establishment kind of thing, but no one really reached out to me after it, and it seemed to be a dead end at the time. So from then I just kind of said, well, I'm just going to sit in the sidelines and kind of see where we go from here. And years go by, and I would see them run, and they would say the same thing I was saying in '96, and nothing's ever changing, and so when Frank offered me this opportunity, I'm like, things come to you in a funny way, but maybe this is my time. Maybe this is the time that I should be doing this, and so I jumped into it. And it's already been a fascinating experience, much more involved than I thought it was. In 96, 97, if I'd have won, I'm not sure how I would have balanced
Sure.
the type of work and being on a board at the same time. But I'd have figured it out.
How do you think your work experience and your career has prepared you to be a village trustee?
Well, one is I understand financing, incredible financing. We in the industry, one thing you learn is you learn to tear apart your operating statements monthly. Look for all your opportunities. So you look into all the fine lines of your goods and your bads. So that helped me understand the financials and some of the other things. I mean, you talk about the utility costs and rents and everything else that you're dealing with. There's a lot going in other than just selling groceries. And then you look at the training side, endless training. I've trained, over the years, I've trained so many managers and co-managers and other assistant managers were brought in underneath me to learn and to train and develop them. So I've learned a lot about training people, a lot about, I tell you, working in diverse communities. 71st and Jeffrey, I walked in there, I was a white man, they didn't like it. But I tell you what, I was there for 4 years, and when I walked out, a lot of the ladies were crying. And we built a relationship of work together. And what I learned is treat everybody the same. It might be hard, but if you make an exception for one, you make them for all. So my motto was that I didn't make exceptions, and I ruled directly down with the policies. And the employees, in almost every case, they come into line and they understand the expectation, and our relationships were fantastic. So when I bring that to the board, I think that we should be able to work together. I think I have a good understanding of how to negotiate things and how to deal with difficult situations. I listen to some of the disciplinary actions that go on and all this stuff, and I think to myself, I've dealt with this most of my life. So I think I've got a wide range of that. Leadership-wise, when I was in the Army, I went to SASCOM Leadership School. I was entered into what's called SCA, the quarter, take all the custodial agents, guards, basically what we were, security of the facilities. And I finished third in Europe on a contest there. I don't know if you'll see it's on the webpage or not. I sent in my letters. I got several letters of recommendations and credited for many inspections. And so I over my years, it's just been little pieces of learning leadership by others that taught me. I mean, I had some great mentors throughout my life too. Probably none better than my dad. He was in the military, and till I was about 16 years old, my head was shaved about every Saturday. Finally, one Saturday, I said, "Dad, I want to put a comb in my hair." And he says, "Okay." He says, "Then you pay for your own haircuts from now on." And
wow.
So from then on, I've had this hairstyle. But I mean, every little piece of life brings you to where you are today. And, there's a tremendous staff at the village. I mean, they have been absolutely phenomenal in bringing me up to speed on a lot of what's going on in the village, because the village doesn't start and stop when somebody comes on the board. Sure. It's an evolving thing. So there's a lot of things that were going on in the village that Terrence had been dealing with, and now he's gone, and I'm slotted in there. And they start talking about this or that project. I mean, I'm clueless to it. So the village administrators and Carl, the attorney, those guys have been, every one of them have been phenomenal in meeting with me and talking to me on the phone about what's going on and the backdrop history of a lot of this stuff. So when I'm there and I'm making decisions and voting on stuff, I actually have a good understanding of like where we started and where we are today. So I give them a lot of credit for I think they've got me up to speed pretty quickly in a few months.
That's great.
So yeah, they're remarkable people. They got their hands full and they take the time for me. So
Yeah, it's great.
yeah.
So, one of the things that's important to everybody is downtown, and as well as the businesses that come in. How do you think that Mokena can be more welcoming to businesses that do want to come into town? And what do you think are some real life examples of actions that you can take to grow the village as a trustee?
Okay. Well, if we want to start with downtown, we can break that down first, because I think that's one that we keep hearing that people in the village would like to see something evolve downtown. So they've got a project going on called the Franklin House. We don't know what's going to happen with that one. That's been going on for quite a while. But when you really go down Front Street and you look at how many vacant buildings there really are, there's not many vacant buildings. There's, you got a dentist office, you got a doctor's office, you got lawyers, you got a reseller shop, you got insurance agents. So almost all the buildings are really being rented right now. There might be one or two that isn't. I'm not positive on that, but almost all of them are rented or leased out to something. So when you look at, like, how do you bring business downtown? First of all, where are they going to go? Now, what we do have is we have several lots on Front Street that need to be developed. I'm not positive who owns those, but to me, we need to reach out to who owns the properties, see what their intent is with the properties, and find out if there's something that can be done to develop those properties to kind of move them along. I'm kind of a fan of the kind of the look of the building they put on the west side of Wolf Road over here, with the apartments or condos above it with some office space below it. I kind of like that look a little bit. And I think that would work along Front Street in the vacant spots. But we have a lot of buildings that need frontal updating. And even though we have a TIF program, it doesn't seem like they're interested in doing that. And obviously, as a village, we can't make them do that. So there's only so much, sitting on a board that you can do. Our job is to make the village accessible for businesses, make it inviting for businesses. So how do you do that? And on Front Street, I think access is critical, and to get businesses down here. And some ways we can do that is, I look at the downtown area is we need a better walking environment, we need a better biking environment, and I think that the Park District could play a huge role if they would put some trails between Main Park and downtown. I would personally like to see them wrap that Farmers Field, Yonkers Field, with a trail around it, with some landscaping, et cetera, running into downtown. But not only that, some people that want to jog could jog the circle. If they want to ride a bike, they could do that. But ultimately, downtown, I think that what's going to make it successful is we're going to need almost like an outdoor beer garden kind of look. Maybe some sushi stores, shops. We're going to need stuff like that. And so if I'm reelected, what I'd like to do is I'd like to meet with all the people that own the land that isn't developed, see what their intent is as far as developing it, and what the village can do to assist them in helping them do that, move that project along. And from there, then maybe we can reach out to some of these things. Are you familiar with the taco? It's called avocado theory in Tinley. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that? Well, that guy used to work for me.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever been in a store and seen how the guacamole sells when they're making it. Have you ever been in the lines? Well, during events like Super Bowl weekend here, there would be 30, 40 people waiting in line. Could we make it? We make it right in front of them. And it was like going to a Subway. What do you want in it? How hot? And we'd customize it for everybody. But I think that's a really good concept to bring down into Front Street. And I personally know the guy, and I thought about getting a hold of him and seeing if there's anything down here that would work for him. Sushi is extremely popular nowadays, and they make drinks, they make everything avocado. So that's one of my ideas, but I think we have to have a kind of expose of businesses and get together with them and try to put things together with what would work for them and what they'd be interested in. But ultimately, 90% of Front Street's being leased out right now.
What do you think about the idea of the village purchasing those lots that are vacant on Front Street?
Well, not knowing what they cost, I don't know that answer. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that buying is my favorite way to go. My favorite way to go would be to put a developer together with the property owner. Is how I'd like to go. Now I know we bought this place over here in the south of the tracks, and but ultimately, the village's responsibility isn't to build businesses. I don't think it is. I think it's to make sure the environment's there. Now, the village has a reputation of, regulatory speaking, pretty tough to deal with. And I don't know if Nick expressed that to you when you did his interview, but there was a lot of hoops that the village makes you jump through to do things. Mm-hmm. And some of them, some of them can be. Some of them are kind of over regulation. Maybe some of them aren't, but I think they should be looked at. But Front Street's going to be a really hard thing to develop. When you let something go to a certain point, deteriorate to a certain level, at that point you can't salvage something anymore, so to speak. And a lot of the buildings in the fronts down there are just so outdated now that they just they're going to need probably a complete overhaul, facial speaking, in order to really attract something aggressively new down there.
Talk about maybe some of the observations. You were, as we said, you were appointed in November as a trustee. Mm-hmm. So just talk a little bit about your time so far, what you've observed, how well the board works together, anything you've been surprised by?
Well, I guess I'm surprised by the amount of activity going on. There's a lot of development going on around the village. With homes and condos and townhouses, and there's a lot of that stuff happening everywhere. The waterworks just finished over here doing that. You build a police department. There's just so much going on. It's like every 2 weeks you have a board meeting, and it's like you got covering a whole new topic. It's like it's just constantly coming at you, and that kind of surprised me because it's such a small village. You wouldn't think it would be like that. It's a lot faster paced than people think, but I think most of our real growth in revenue sources are going to have to come on a lot of the properties along 191st. There's a lot of unincorporated areas along Interstate 80 there that somehow we should really probably start thinking about a way to incorporate those properties before it's too late. Someone might grab them if we don't. But I think that's one thing we should do. But I think our future revenue sources are going to probably come from a lot of warehousing in those areas. So.
Any areas that you believe the village could cut costs or generate additional revenues? Well,
I probably would. I don't want to get too confrontational with Frank here, but sure. I look at a couple things that first of all, I'm not saying I'm personally for or against. You have to look at what's good for the village revenue wise and what isn't good for the village. So when you talk about things like cannabis stores, everybody around us has got them. Mm-hmm. Half the village is probably using it. We're not getting a penny. I looked at the revenue that we're getting from gaming. We have almost no gaming in the village, but the revenue is pretty significant what we do have. We only have it in 3 or 4 places. I think we should look at expanding the gaming, and it's not something I use, but there's obviously a drive for it. I go to the VFW in New Lenox. There's always people back there playing them. So I think those are two areas that they can look at to gain revenue in. I think that people in the village are I think they want it. Mm-hmm. I think they want it. I know that I know people on medical marijuana and stuff like that, and even that they're leaving the village to get that stuff.
Well, because Mokena had the medical,
Right.
and it was tucked way back in the industrial area, and we lost. They left, so whatever revenue we were getting there left to New Lenox.
Yeah.
And now New Lenox did probably what I think is a smarter thing is you put it up front. It's where you're not going to tucked away and have crime. The crime concern
They moved
that there
it.
was.
Yeah, they actually. I did therapy for my knee right next to that place where they moved out over there. But I think what they did is I believe didn't they put medical and regular cannabis
they were
together?
able to do both. Yeah,
and that's the right combination to do is put them both in the same facility and regulate it and monitor it.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of safety issues, it's easier to have it when it's out in front of the public than tucked away in an industrial park area. And I think people have begun to learn that more. But you're right; you see it in New Lenox, and
everywhere.
Joliet, and Orland Hills, and Tinley Park, and
you can pull the financials up online from on Mokena.org and look at their budgeting statements where income comes from, and you'll be surprised at how much income we're getting for the little bit of gaming that we have. And like I say, things like marijuana and gaming, both of those, a lot of people believe they're addictive. There's a lot of people have strong feelings one way or the other for it, but I would be willing to bet if we took a poll in the village, I bet that both of those would pass. I think they both pass. And the Frank is, I think, I'm talking to him about cannabis stores, but I think he's not really into the gaming side at all. And
well, I know that when it was first being legalized, the village board voted against legalizing recreational in the village.
Right. That's why the one store moved out.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe it's something that worth. Hopefully, maybe a conversation starts now, and it's maybe reconsidered or see where people stand on it.
If you want to build something downtown, put a nice restaurant down there or a lounge down there. Put some gaming machines in there, and open up another business somewhere downtown and put your medical marijuanas in it and your cannabis in it, and your issue might become you don't have enough parking.
Very true. It'd be a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, it would be.
What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that face our village over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, oh boy. There's a couple things on the front side that I think of, and one is obviously the traffic is going to get completely brutal. We're almost there now. We're going to be there. We can't get away from that. I think the second thing is I wonder about funding for pensions because we don't have really anybody in retirement with pensions right now. They're very little, but pension funding ultimately bankrupts a lot of places. And we have a police department that eventually is going to start retiring, and there'll be pensions there. Most of our guys, I think, are relatively young, but I look long term, thinking about the biggest thing I see financially stressed may be the pensions that we're going to be paying one day.
Okay. Mokena is talking about building a new village hall. I'm not sure how much you've heard,
I'm in the loop and all that. Yeah.
What would you like to see for a village hall?
Well, I'm very, very, very tight, physically speaking. So I know that the village, the hall that we're in now is pretty old, but I think we're at a time when I don't know if I could. I'm not sure how I feel about building and spending that kind of money today.
What kind of money? What does that mean?
Well,
what's a ballpark?
We spent $25 million for a police department. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to guess that a village hall would be at least in that ballpark, maybe more because what did the land cost us? I don't know. But what I'm in for right now is I think that I wouldn't mind seeing us go ahead and secure a piece of property, and for a future build. but I'm not one that likes to take out like bonds and loans and things like that, because you never know what's going to hit tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very conservative in that. Look, I think the direction of the board and all that, I think they're kind of committed to probably building a new village hall, and I would have to probably learn a lot more about that before I would totally buy into something like that. As far as I know, we haven't got a location yet, and once a location comes, it'll be game on. I'll have to make a decision if I'm there. But I think they're committed to probably putting a new village hall up. And where I look around the village, and where would you want that? I mean, I look at two locations. One is out there next to the police department on the west side there. There's some land there. Don't know who owns it. Don't know what it costs. And then I also look at the, some land over here around the park. Is there something there that could be acquired there? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know what the residents think about that. I mean, not many people use the village hall, So to them, the residents might feel it's not worth it.
Yeah, and that's very true. Village hall is irrelevant to most residents right now.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at what villages like New Lenox have done when they built theirs. They made the village hall kind of the centerpiece. And created
right.
Which, Mokena definitely needs. It would be interesting if that was a similar incorporation.
If you take it, but if you do that here, all the talk about the downtown area. Now let's just say you take the village hall and you put it over here, and you do something like New Lenox did, because they did a hell of a job over there. And you do that. Did you just move the core of your downtown?
Sure, it depends on the location. Yeah,
you could have moved it. You could have moved the core to the downtown area to where your new location is, and so it's I don't know. The village hall doesn't bother me, but I don't work there all the time, really. And I know I think there could be some people a little bit antsy because we just built this beautiful new police department. It's pretty nice, right? It's beautiful. Ultimately, we're going to have a new village hall, and I don't know when that'll happen, but I guess I might have to be sold on it a little bit before we get that far. Yeah. How we're going to fund it? Maybe if we fund it with cannabis and gaming. Well,
machines. Another thing I think that you mentioned, because I've heard other ideas have been along that 191st Street area. But I thought, with even where the police station is, that's valuable tax dollars of development that we're taking 100%. Away from, especially our 159 school district. Is a thought to consider. That should that be developed and increase, bring revenue for our
exactly.
So
they say, well, our old village hall. So we build a new one, and we tear this one down. And what do they do with the land then? Mm-hmm. Do they make a park out of it? Do they sell it off as individual lots for homes?
Yeah.
So there can be some revenue offsets by stuff like that. We have a lot of buildings the village owns that we could look at getting rid of. You got the one little community, get the little building over here. I forget what it's got, community services or something on it. It's on the north side of Front Street
ESDA
over
there.
The what?
Yeah, the ESDA building. That's the original. The old jail was there.
Yes. And then across the street, you have the former firehouse and police department.
Yeah.
Got that. I was personally not in for using any of that for what we're doing. I thought we should have sold that off for development. I don't think cities should get into property owning, so to speak. And if you look at this place on the tracks over here that they bought. I think that was bought a little bit out of paranoia because I think they were afraid that there might be another industrial type of building go up in that area. Mm-hmm. So, because I think it was at the time zoned industrial. Mm-hmm. So, but there's like you said, you're showing me there's just so much going on in the village right now, and the village hasn't grown for a long time. And it seems like there's a lot on his plate right now.
And that's something I've talked about with other people, and it's a challenge with a town like ours that still has a small town feel. It's a challenge to grow while maintaining, kind of holding on to that feel. You know, we don't want to be necessarily New Lenox or Tinley Park or, we're our own village, but there is a growth that needs to happen, and balancing that the right way.
Well, the need for growth is mostly driven because you need revenue to pay your bills. And there's only two ways you're going to get that. You're going to get it from your businesses in the community, or you're going to get it from your taxpayers. And taxpayers, and I know a lot of people in the village. A lot of people are pretty fed up with where their taxes have headed the last few years. You know, it's always been slow growth increases on our taxes, but the last couple of years have been dramatic increases. And to the point that some people I know have even sold their homes. They can't afford it anymore. And I think it's really sad when we get to the point where our tax bills determine where you live. And I think we're basically landlocked here. We can't really spread out and grow much. So we have to do what we can with what we have right here. And you talked about 191st. We put the Village Hall over there, and you're right. We probably lost a place that's going to give us some pretty good revenue. But I've heard some talk about the Village Hall. There's a little bit of that going on about little new Village Hall. I'm not sure what time frame they're looking at or anything like that. It's never come up in front of the village a meeting. So if they're looking for land, I mean, eventually it would have to come to the board to decide to purchase or not to start the ball. But
it's an exciting thought, and who knows how far down the road. I mean, it took almost 20 years to get the police station from the time they bought the lot.
Well, see, there was I shouldn't even say this while you got me recording here, but I would have built that Village Hall the police department about 10 or 12 years ago when we had zero interest rate out there. I wouldn't have saved $20 million with zero interest on it or whatever I'm sure they made some money, they invested it, but still.
And how much more were supplies and
the cost of goods. I mean,
it was delayed because of the housing or the economy downturn.
Right.
But
I know.
Right,
But
you look back now.
When you get zero interest on something, people jump, right? So I probably would have liked to seen it built 10, 12 years ago. And with zero interest, payments are very little, but it is what it is.
So we're going to kind of start to wrap up a little bit, but it's been great.
Yeah, I probably said 10 things I shouldn't have, but okay, I'm about to get fried.
If you were talking to a new resident that came into town, what advice would you give them or offer them to get more connected, involved in the community?
Boy, that is the golden challenge. If there's one thing that frustrates me the most is the fact that no one goes to the Village Hall meetings. Most people don't have Comcast. They can't even watch the meetings anymore. I've already talked about why are they not on YouTube? Why don't we just YouTube them? And hopefully, if I'm elected, that we can move that way. But I really think we need to find a way to engage. And I think it starts with programs like youth programs, kids in school and stuff like that, bring them into the village more. I know they would do that once a year. They used to do that, but I think we should do it more, maybe as trustees and mayor, going into some of the junior highs and the high schools and talk about, civic duty and stuff like that. Yeah. But there has to be an outreach. I mean, you don't do a trustee's job or even a mayor's job for the money. There's no money in it. I mean, if that's your driving force, you're definitely looking at the wrong spot. But we have to find younger people to engage. I feel like I'm sitting here on a board making a decision that's going to be for my grandkids. And I'd rather have my daughters here making those decisions. And I would love to find someone that's 50 years old that would jump in and do this tomorrow morning. And it's there just doesn't seem to be much enthusiasm for that. The only time people in the village get upset is when they look at their tax bill, right? their water bill.
Sure. Yeah.
And if they get a little bit more upset about that, maybe they'd actually go out and vote and then actually do something to change. Change is more difficult once you let them, raise your taxes. Now it's tough to change, right?
Like you said, once the price of those things goes up, same with our taxes, we're not going to see them tick back down.
Because the departments or whatever the governing body is, once they tax you and they've got this money, they spend it.
Yeah.
So the next year, if you say, wait, we want you to cut, well, that means they got to cut what they was spent last year. And nobody does that anymore. We know that.
Yeah.
To me, I would love to see, absolutely love to see an engagement by younger kids and stuff like that, or young adults to get into this stuff.
Yeah. Tell us, what's your favorite restaurant?
My favorite restaurant? Wow, I'm pretty simple when you come to that. I would say it used to be Red Lobster, but I think now my wife and I, we go to Peppermill a lot.
Okay.
We go there a lot, and we go to Beggar's Pizza. And those are probably the two places we kind of go to the most in the village.
All right.
So,
if you could instantly master one skill, what would it be?
Golf.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. You might have answered favorite area restaurant. I don't know, Peppermill or?
Well, yeah, my wife, when we do go to Peppermill a lot, and she always jokes, she walks in, she'll say like, they're all seniors. And, she doesn't realize that I'm 72 and you're going to be 70, okay? We're seniors, Peg. But she's in denial of that. But I like the Peppermill. They have good food. They're reasonably priced. They got good service. So, yeah.
What's your favorite Mokena community event?
Oh, I think the July 4th parade, probably. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
I finally, this year I got to drive in it, which was really unique. To actually be on the other side of the ropes for a change. It's pretty neat.
What did you think of that? I had the same thing. I with the Lions for the first time walked in the parade.
Oh, did you?
So, yeah.
Oh, it was, you know what? I mean, it was just, I did about 30 events over the summer. And so I did a lot of communities. The enthusiasm in Mokena and the kids is incredible. It's just like, it's almost like bring the tears of your eyes. There's just so much, when people say people don't love America, then you go and you do that and they're cheering you and thanking you. They don't know that I'm a veteran. They're cheering you and thanking you and all those things, and it's just really inspiring to see that, and I absolutely love doing the parades this year. We did so many events.
Yeah, we've been. That's my favorite. We've been coming to that since just before we moved here, and we always love that parade.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what's your go-to coffee order?
My go-to coffee order is black coffee.
I knew that was going to be your answer for some reason.
I do throw a little cream in it nowadays.
Okay.
I used to not, but I do cream it a little bit now. But yeah, I'm basically a black coffee guy.
Okay. Well, that's the last of my hot button questions for you here. But so I'll just give you a minute if you want to share why should people support you and vote for you this election.
Well, I guess I can't really give a good answer to that because I'm just probably like all the others. We say what we'd like to do, but we get there and find out that you can't get it done. So I do feel really positive right now with my conversations with Frank and Nick and Kim. I think we're on the same page. If we're elected, we've talked about getting together and actually the four of us putting an agenda together of what we'd like to do in the next 4 years and stay focused on that. To me, one of the problems with the village, and maybe they've done it, but I've never really seen it happen. I don't think they get elected and come in with a specific agenda that they would like to get done. I don't want to change the world. I don't want to change Mokena. I love the little small town of Mokena. Would like to tweak a few things. I'd like to make it better in a few spots. I'd like to make sure that whatever the citizens in the village want, that we can try to bring that to them. And other than that, I just go to work every day that I work for the village and do what I can that's best for them. 4 years down the road, I'll start going back on vacation in the winter.
Well, that's great. Well, Trustee Roberts, thank you very much for taking some time with me tonight. Make sure to check out all of our candidate interviews. Well, the full slate's up. You can check those out. And be sure to vote on April 1st.
April 1st.
Thanks
Or
again.
before.
Or before, that's right. By
before.
April 1st.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
All right, thank you.
You didn't make it too rough on me.